No matter how much mainstream media tries to distort it and make it a household item, punk by nature is a mindset. In the end, the patches on your jacket and the color of your hair won't matter. What does matter is that you embrace difference, stay true to yourself, and when things are wrong, you speak up about it. That is true punk, as shown in the decline of Western civilization. All you need to know is that the following bands are featured: Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Catholic Discipline, X, Fear, Alice Bag Band, and The Germs. Oh, you need to know more? Fine. It was released in 1981 and directed by Penelope Spheris. Punk music and culture was in its early stages in Los Angeles, so she documented a few bands that interested her. That being said, the decline is a bit selective because it leaves out a few important LA bands, such as the Weirdos and the Zeros. My guess is that Spheris caught her favorites of the scene and filmed just enough to get the point across. It's important to note that the Black Flag you see in the movie is pre-Henry Rollins, so this short-lived stint with Ron Reyes as the frontman is captured. Meanwhile, the Bags were given the name Alice Bag Band in the movie to avoid potential issues with Pat Bagg, who was out of the band at that point. So what's documented here? Well, we have live performances of the bands featured, iconically starting the movie off with a disclaimer to the audience.
Attention!
By your entry upon these premises,
You are consenting to being photographed
and to having your likeness used in motion pictures
and for other purposes.
thank you.
Of course, there are interviews with most of the bands, as well as a look into their living arrangements.
Ron, can you show us where you live, please?
It's not exactly what you would call a penthouse or anything like that, but this is this is where all the action goes on, right?
How much does it cost?
$16 a month.
How much do you make per month when you as a performer?
It's pretty much nothing.
Part of me wishes that the Circle Jerks were interviewed and not just shown live, but again, Spheris probably felt like she got her point across with what was already shown in the movie. After all, the runtime is over 100 minutes. The bands are covered, but there's also a look at the short-lived Slash fanzine. What's nice about this is that the editors read aloud the letters sent to them by punks.
Dissolve and die, lie through your teeth. Accepting the fact that these masses, these perpetual bourgeois, never leave their happy homes in the suburbs and refuse to learn new ideas, they still disgust me. They keep themselves in stitches and think they're happy. Do not fear the new. Must not let these bourgeois control the factors of your life.
This indicates to the viewer that punk can be more than just music or a clothing style, and that it can also be political. You get a sense of what the fans are like as well as the musicians. Meanwhile, you get to see how a small fanzine like this was operated in 1979-1980. I love the club owner's outlook on moshing and pogo dancing. If you try to stop anybody from doing it, you're just asking for trouble.
There's a fine line between pogo dancing and fighting. And the fact that if you see somebody, come here, Dice. If you see somebody over here with grabbing a girl and shaking and shit and throwing them up against the stage, grabbing her ass or whatever, they're dancing, they're having a good time. She may be crying, but she may be loving it, as weird as these kids can get.
Just as a side commentary, it's interesting how mosh etiquette has changed over time. Here we have a real mosh pit with some violent stuff going on, but for the most part now things are a bit more civilized.
Wayne, can you tell me what you thought the first time you saw them dancing?
Well, to me, it was just another form of dance. It's an energy outlet. They're really nice kids. They just have to be doing something different.
When the bands are playing live, they're nothing short of fun to watch. Here are bands that actually do things and have an interaction with the audience instead of just standing the hell still. The most memorable part of the movie is probably Darby Crash jumping around, singing away from the microphone, getting hurt and acting wild on stage. This guy is possessed! Then there's Fierce performance. They're just pissing off the audience and loving it. It's highly amusing to watch.
Yeah, next time don't bite so hard when I come, okay? Yeah, fuck you. You only spit as good as you suck, shithead.
Eat my fuck, asshole.
You's a bunch of fucking jerk-offs, do you know that?
Outside of the live shows, everybody discusses their way of playing. I particularly love this one explanation.
How come the songs are so fast and short?
They're fast because that's what gets us off, okay? That's the energy level. And they're short because that's how long the inspiration lasts.
A scene of X shows off these religious propaganda pamphlets.
They're really ridiculous. They say the most insane things. And you cannot believe that society's gotten to the state where there's these things you find in the gutter that say, the product of a public school wanders aimlessly asking, where did that come from? Why am I here and where am I going? Public education makes leeches and sends people to hell.
It's an insightful way to get in the mindset of writing an anti-religious song, really. The decline of Western civilization might be limited to its area and limited to its time period, but it succeeds because it captures everything in such a broad perspective. It would be one thing to just interview a bunch of people and make a movie, but here we have several different aspects of punk all in the same place. The ideologies, the personalities, the lifestyle, the fanzines, the live performances. Some of these bands weren't big when this movie was filmed, but would become respected names in punk later on, especially after this dropped. If you don't know punk, then this would be a good history lesson without it feeling like it, and if you already know punk, then enjoy the ride.
Show me your head. Why did you do that?
I'm the ex-head.
Fuck.